Good day everyone. So today I will discuss the Filipino values and moral development, strength and weaknesses of the Filipino character. So first, let's start with the strength of the Filipino character. So first is pakikipagkapwa-tao. Filipinos are open to others and feel one with others, regards others with dignity and respect, deal with them as fellow human being. Pakikipagkapwa-tao is manifested in a basic sense of justice and fairness and in concern for others. It is demonstrated in the Filipinos' ability to empathize with others, in helpfulness and generosity in times of needs or pakikiramay, in the practice of bayanihan or mutual assistance, and in the famous Filipino hospitality. Filipinos possess a sensitivity to people feelings or pakikiramdam, pagtitiwala or trust, and a sense of gratitude or utang na loob. Because of pakikipagkapwa-tao, Filipinos are very sensitive to the quality of interpersonal relationships and are very dependent on them. If our relationship are satisfactory, we are happy and secure. Pakikipagkapwa-tao result in camaraderie and a feeling of closeness to one another. It is the foundation for unity as well as the sense of social justice. Also, ang pakikipagkapwa-tao ay ang pagkilala sa tao bilang tao na may katulad na dignidad at karapatan. Ang kahalagaan ng pakikipagkapwa-tao ay pagkilala na ikaw at agipapa sa paligid mo ay kapwa-tao. Kinilala ka dapat ng ibang tao hindi dahil sa kung anong meron ka, kung hindi kung sino ka. Ang pakikipagkapwa-tao na isa sa buhay ang kababaang loob na itinuturing kagalang-galang na pagpapahalaga. Ang pagiging matapat ay isa ring katangi-tanging pagpapahalaga na nakapagbibigay lakas sa samahan sapagkat ang pagbabalat kayo ay hindi nagbubunga ng mabuti sa samahan. Next is family orientation. Filipino possesses genuine and deep love for family, which includes not simply spouse and children, parent and siblings, but also grandparents, aunts, uncle, cousin, godparents, and other ceremonial relatives. To the Filipino, one's family is the source of personal identity, the source of emotional and material support, and one's main commitment and responsibility. Concern for the family is manifested in the honor and respect given to the parents and elders, in the care given to the children, the generosity towards skin in need, and in great sacrifices one endures for the welfare of the family. This sense of family result in a feeling of belongingness and rootedness in a basic sense of security. The family of orientation refers also to the family in which a person is raised. Although this generally includes one's parent and siblings, it may also include grandparents and other relatives. So this is the example of family orientation. Next is joy and humor. Filipino have a cheerful and fun-loving approach to life and its ups and downs. We have a pleasant disposition, a sense of humor, and propensity for happiness that contribute not only to the Filipino charm but also to the indomitability of the Filipino spirit. Laughing at ourselves and the mess we are in is an important coping mechanism. Often playful, sometimes disrespectful, we laugh at those we love and to those we hate, and we make jokes about our good fortune and bad. This sense of joy and humor is manifested in the Filipinos' love for socials and celebration, in our capacity to laugh even in the most trying of times, and in the appeal of political satire. The result is a certain emotional balance, optimism, a healthy disrespect for power and office, and the capacity to survive. As you can see in the picture, kahit nasalantaan tayo ng bagyo or marami man tayong kinakaharap na pagsubok, hindi pa rin nawawala ang mga ngiti sa ating mga labi at patuloy pa rin tayong lumalaban para sa ating kinabukasan. Next is flexibility, adaptability, and creativity. Filipinos have a great capacity to adjust and to adapt to circumstances and the surrounding environment, both physical and social. Unplanned or anticipated events are never overly disturbing or disorienting as the flexible Filipino adjusts to whatever happens. We possess tolerance for ambiguity that enables us to remain unfazed by uncertainty or lack of information. We are creative, resourceful, quick learners, and have the ability to improvise and make use of whatever is at hand in order to create and produce. This quality of the Filipino is manifested in the ability to adapt to life in any part of the world, in the ability to make new things out of old scrap, in the capacity to keep old machine running, and of course, in the creative talent manifested in the cultural sphere. It is likewise seen in the ability to accept change. This result is productivity, innovation, entrepreneurship, equanimity, and survival. This allows the Filipino to adapt and be flexible in doing the task at time not bound to the particular schedule or time frame. This allows them to think on their feet and be creative in facing whatever challenge or task they have even when it is already right in front of them. Adaptable, flexible, and resilient is more important because the change is constant. It is how any organization thrives and survive. So they need people who can adapt the changing circumstances and environments, being resourceful and enterprising to embrace new ideas. Next is hard work and industry. Filipino have the capacity to hard work given proper condition, the desire to raise one standard of living and to possess the essential of a decent life for a family, combined with the right opportunities and incentives, make the Filipino work very hard. This is manifested most noticeable in willingness to take the risk with job abroad, and while there, they work at 2 or 3 jobs. The result is productivity and entrepreneurship for some and survival despite poverty for others. Working hard and being industrious implies that you are doing things that takes courage and boldness. You are taking the shot whether others will not, and doing things that others people may consider difficult. Resourcefulness comes hard work. Filipinos are very determined and persevering in accomplishing whatever they set their minds to. Filipinos over the years have proven time and time again that they are a people with an industrious attitudes. Next is Filipino have deep faith in God. Our innate religiosity enables us to comprehend and genuinely accept reality in the context of God's will and plan. Thus, tragedy and bad fortune are accepted, and some optimism characterizes even the poorest lives. Filipinos live very intimately with religion. It is tangible and touchable, a part of everyday life. We ascribe human traits to a supernatural God whom we alternately threaten and thank, call upon for mercy or forgiveness, and appease by pledges. Thus, prayer is an important part of our lives. The faith of the Filipino is related to bahala na, which instead of being viewed as defeatist resignation, may be considered positively as a receiver or psychic energy, an important psychological prop on which we can lean during hard times. This pampalakas ng loob allows us to act despite uncertainty. Having faith is having trust. You have to trust with your entire being that God has your back, that He will help you and take care of you. He knows what is best, but to truly embrace what He has planned for you, you have to fully trust. Our trust is not foolish, for our God is both faithful and good. Our faith and daring was manifested at EDSA and other times in our history, even when it was difficult to be brave. It is also seen in the capacity to accept failure and defeat without our self-concept being devastated, since we recognize forces internal to our lives as contributing to how events in our lives turn out. The result of the Filipinos' faith are courage, daring optimism, inner peace, as well as the capacity to genuinely accept tragedy and death. Next is ability to survive. Filipinos have an ability to survive which manifested in our capacity for endurance despite of difficult times and in our ability to get by or so very little. Filipinos make do with what is available in the environment. This survival instinct is related to the Filipinos' other strength, a basic optimism, flexible, and adaptability, hard work, and a deep faith in God. It is manifested in the millions of Filipinos who bravely live through the hardest economic and social circumstances. Regretfully, one wonders what we might be able to do under better circumstances. Survival skills are techniques that a person may use in order to sustain life in any type of natural environment or built environment. These techniques are meant to provide basic necessities for human life, which includes water, food, and shelter. Just like in Odette na na-experience natin, alam naman natin na malaking naging impact ang ibinigay ng bagyong Odette. Walang kuryente, tubig, at nagkasira-sira pa ang ating mga bahay. But in that, we able to survive at bumangon tayong muli. So now, let's proceed in the weaknesses of the Filipino character. First is extreme personalism. Filipinos view the world in terms of personal relationship and the extent to which one is able to personally relate things and people determines the recognition of their existence and to value given to them. There is no separation between an objective task and emotional involvement. This personalism manifested in the tendency to give personal interpretation to actions like take things personally. Thus, a sincere question may be viewed as a challenge to one's competence or positive feedback may be interpreted as a sign of special affection. There in fact some basis for such interpretations as Filipinos are quite personal in criticism and praise. Personalism is also manifested in the necessity for the establishment of personal relationship before any business or work relationship can be successful. Because of personalistic worldview, Filipinos have difficult dealing with all forms of person stimuli. It is for the reason that one is uncomfortable with rules and regulation and with standard procedures, all of which tend to be impersonal. In the face of this, we ignore them as we ask for exemptions. Personal contacts are involved in any transaction and these are difficult to turn down. Preference is usually given to family and friends in hiring, delivery of service, and even in voting. Extreme personalism leads to the graft and corruption evident in Philippine society. Next is extreme family-centeredness. While concern for the family is one of the Filipinos' greatest strength, in the extreme, it becomes a serious flaw. Excessive concern for the family creates an in-group to which the Filipino is firstly loyal to the detriment of concern for the larger community or for the common good. Excessive concern for family manifests itself in the use of one's office and power as a means of promoting the interests of the family. Factionalism, patronage, and political dynasties, and in the protection of erring family members. It results a lack of concern for the common good and acts as a block to national consciousness. Filipinos are known for having strong and close family ties. They place high and put the importance on their family before anything else. They work all day and do all they can to feed and to provide for their family. In other countries, no, when a person turned 18, he or she can live away from his or her family, unlike here in the Philippines. Next is the lack of discipline. The Filipinos' lack of disciplines encompasses several related characteristics. We have a casual and relaxed attitude towards time and space, which manifests itself in lack of precision and compulsiveness, in poor time management and procrastination. We have an aversion for following strictly a set of procedures, and these result in lack of standardization and quality control. We are impatient and unable to delay gratification or reward, resulting in the use of shortcuts in skirting the rules, or the palusot syndrome. And in full hardiness, we are guilty of ningas kogon, starting out project with full vigor and interest which abruptly die down, leaving things unfinished. Our lack of discipline often result in efficient and wasteful work system violation of rules, leading to more serious transgression, and a casual work ethic leading to carelessness and lack of follow-through. When people drive carelessly and disobey the rules, heavy traffic ensues. When traffic is bad, people are driven to play against the rules just to get ahead. In addition, slack implementation of rules also leads to lack of discipline. People are inclined to disobey when they know that they can get away with violations. Next is passivity and lack of initiative. Filipino are generally passive and lacking in initiative. One waits to be told what has to be done. There is a strong reliance on others, like leaders, government, to do things for us. This is related to one's attitudes toward authorities. Filipinos have a need for a strong authority. One is generally submissive to those in authority and is not likely to raise issues or to question decisions. Filipinos tends to be complacent, and there rarely is a sense of urgency about any problem. There is a high tolerance for efficiency, poor service, and even violation of one's basic rights. In many ways, it can be said that Filipino is too patient and long-suffering, or matiisin. Too easily resigned to one's fate, Filipinos are thus easily oppressed and exploited. Next is colonial mentality. Filipinos have a colonial mentality which is made up two dimensions. The first is the lack of patriotism, or an active awareness, appreciation, and love for the Philippines. The second is an actual preference for the things foreign. Filipino culture is characterized by an openness to the outside, adapting and incorporating the foreign element into our image of ourselves. And yet, these things is not built around the deep core of Philippines history and language. This result is cultural vagueness and weakness that makes Filipinos extraordinarily susceptible to the wholesale acceptance of modern mass culture, which is often Western. Thus, this is preference for foreign fashion, entertainment, lifestyle, technology, consumer items, and etc. The Filipino colonial mentality is manifested in the alienation of the elite from their roots and from the masses, as well as in the basic feeling of national inferiority that makes it difficult for Filipinos to relate as equals to Westerners. Next is the Kanyakanya Syndrome. Filipinos have a selfish, self-serving attitude that generates a feeling of envy and competitiveness toward others, particularly one's peers who seems to have gained some status or prestige. Towards them, the Filipino demonstrates that so-called crab mentality, using the traveling instrument of chismes, intriga, and unconstructive criticism that brings others down. There seems to be basic assumption that another gain is one's loss. The Kanyakanya Syndrome is also evident in the personal ambition and drive for power and status that is completely insensitive to the common good. Personal and in-group interests reign supreme. This characteristic is also evident in the lack of sense of service among people in the government bureaucracy. The public is made to feel the service from these offices and from the civil servant is an extra perk that is to be paid for. The Kanya-Kanya Syndrome results in dampening of cooperative and community spirit and in the trampling upon the rights of others. Next is the lack of self-analysis and self-reflection. There is a tendency in the Filipinos to be superficial and even somewhat flighty. In the face of serious problems, both personal and social, there is a lack of analysis or reflection. We joke about the most serious matters and this prevents looking deeply into the problem. There is no felt need to validate or hypothesis or explanation of things. Thus, we are satisfied with superficial explanation and superficial solution to problem. Related to this, the Filipino emphasis on form or maporma rather than on substance. There is a tendency to be satisfied with rhetoric and to substitute this for reality. Empty rhetorics and endless work are very much part of public discourse. As long as the right things are said, as long as the proper documents and reports exist, as long as the proper committees, task force, or offices are firm, Filipinos are deluded into believing that what ought to be actually exists. The Filipino lack of self-analysis and our emphasis on norms is reinforced by an educational system that is often more form than substance and a legal system that tends to substitute law for reality. That will be the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.